This episode of Talk About Games is sponsored by Loot Crate. This month's theme is Arena. Go to lootcrate.com/Cinemassacre to get yours, and make sure to use coupon code Cinemassacre for 10% off. Dead by Daylight is an asymmetric horror game. It's by an indie studio. What does asymmetric mean? It means basically that one player is the killer and there are 4 other players that are the survivors or the victims.
We did both. We played a bunch of different rounds. I find being the killer to be a little bit more fun than being the survivor. I also find the controls a little bit easier with being the killer. The killer is essentially like a Jason Voorhees type. He's got, the machete, and he can put down bear traps, which is really cool. So essentially what you do as the killer is you go around and you have to catch the survivors. They're going around attempting to start generators. And if they start the generator, they can open the door and escape. You as the killer, you can see all the different generators in the dark. He's kind of got like an infrared thing going on. And you go up to all the generators, and then once you see somebody, you go after and attack them. What I noticed with the thing is you have to be really, really, really close to the survivors before you can hit them. But once you do hit the survivor, you take them, you put them up on the meat hook, just like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they hang there. They can try to escape and whatever, but eventually, if they hang there long enough, another survivor could come along and save them and take them down, but you kind of want to wait, and you want to make sure that doesn't happen. And if they hang there long enough, a spider comes down and it starts attacking them, and then a giant spider from the sky, you get sucked up into the sky. I don't really know how to explain it other than that.
It's really interesting. The game doesn't really throw its mythos in your face, but there's some cool things. So you have the hunter, and he's the guy who is the killer. And he's got his machete, he's got his bear traps, and he's putting him on the meat hooks.
But he essentially worships this thing in the sky.
He worships, or he's enslaved by, or we don't really know, by the thing called the entity, which is the big spider creature.
Right.
Now, one thing I thought was really cool is the RPG-like elements that go into every act that the survivors do, because they're doing skill checks. There's a skill check to heal. There's a skill check to start a generator. There's a skill check to escape from the meat hook. There's a skill check to wiggle out of his grasp. Mm-hmm. So there's all these like mechanical things you're doing, and these little like quick time events you're doing every step of the way. And the penalties for failing the quick time events or the little skill checks you're doing are different based on what your goals are. If you fail on the generator, it sparks and it, alerts the killer as well. Mm-hmm. But if you fail when you're on the meat hook, you get impaled by a giant spider. So the stakes are different based on what type of check you're doing. The other thing that really separates the two modes is when you're the killer, you're first person, you have a very narrow field of view. When you are the survivors, it's third person, and you can kind of move the mouse around. Like while you're doing the skill checks, you can look behind you and things like that, which is really cool that there's a difference in the way that they do things. That also carries to a lot of the skill checks. Like for instance, a survivor can jump through a window really fast, but the killer,
seems to take forever to get over
he
the wall.
Slowly steps over. So you see those kind of things happen
Which
too.
is weird though, because the killer does actually move a lot quicker than the survivors, but not with some things. One of the things that the survivors can do to stop the killer sort of is you can throw crates and things in his way, which the killer then has to break through to try to catch up. And it's all about the catching up to the survivor to catch them, or vice versa, running away.
One of the things they did, which I thought was really brilliant, is anytime the killer is doing some kind of event, like stepping through a window or put down the bear trap, his view's obstructed. He looks at the ground. He looks over. So it's always a challenge to be like, did they go left? Did they go right? And when you add things like hiding in houses, hiding in lockers, things like that, it can be hard to find the survivors.
One of the things that I really liked about the game is after you complete a round, let's say you win the round, you're the killer and you win the round, you will get a certain number of points that you can then spend on items. For example, one of the things you can get is the bear trap that'll close down on the survivor to slow them down or to capture them, or to injure them, I should say. That progresses as you go. There's all these items that you can get to make your character stronger, so that, you know, makes you want to keep going with it. The version we played is the beta version. What really needs to happen, there needs to be a little bit more variety, because as of right now, the game is just this one sort of bluish, foggy map out in the woods, which is it's a very cool level, but there needs to be more stages. Like, the game could take place in a hospital, it could take place on a spaceship, it could take place with a whole bunch of different settings that would be really nice to see.
I would love to see different killers that have to appease the entity in different ways. Like, this guy uses meat hooks, but what if they have to do like some type of dark ritual, or they have to throw him out the airlocks, or
there needs
something like that.
There needs to be a bunch of different killers.
Yeah. The 4 maps that we get in the beta all look the same.
Yeah. That's a problem.
It's hard to differentiate them.
They aesthetically look the same, although things are set up differently. There definitely needs to be more maps and more, I think, more villains. At least a couple. I
think you take this game, you give it like 5 to 10 villains, you give it like 6 or 7 unique locales that they're in, and it's a complete package. Right now, it's like a tech demo.
And I know the first thing people are saying is, oh, you know, it should have Freddy in there, it should have like Hellraiser in there, you know, it should have all that kind of stuff. I actually don't think that the game needs to have licensed characters. It would be fine if there were just a bunch of kind of spooky, creepy characters. It doesn't have to be Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger. I was fine with this guy who was just sort of a generic Jason type of guy. I thought he was good. It was fine.
You look at one of my favorite games, Lakeview Cabin. They have no killers that are licensed, but they still manage to pull it off.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have the like camp setting or things like that, but make the killer different. Don't make it Jason. Make it somebody else.
The game definitely needs a little bit more variety, but I actually had a lot of fun playing this game. The way the game is now with the beta, it does get boring pretty quickly because there needs to be more variety, but if they do go ahead and add in some more levels, some more villains, this would be an awesome game.
There's a little teething problems with the beta, like the game takes a little bit to load. We had a little bit of Steam matchmaking issues, but there was
a few little glitches.
It wasn't brutal. The one thing I really hope that they fix in the final version is for us to play with friends, we needed to find 3 other friends. This is a game where you have 4 people and a killer. There should be allowed to be mixed parties.
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, you know, it really affected our ability to play because somebody has to go home and then all of a sudden, like, you're not playing together
I didn't
anymore.
understand why there had to be 5 people playing. Like, why couldn't it be 3? Or,
right.
you know, why do we have to why does the number have to be 5?
The other thing that would have been nice is controller support. This is a game that has maybe 3 or 4 buttons. We don't need a whole keyboard.
I didn't mind playing the game with the keyboard and the mouse, but with Survivor, walking around, I found that a little bit difficult. The killer was a little bit easier to control, but if I would have been able to have a controller, the game probably would be more fun, at least for me. And I think there would be a lot of people that would want to play this game with a controller. They really need to add that. I think that's
the number 1.
That's the number 1, controller support. Number 2, maps. Number 3, more villains.
Absolutely. It would be nice if in the interface they could show you the maps too. Like, oh, this is the level you're going into. It has this layout, you know? And there is a map item in the game, but it would be nice if it was like documented somewhere.
Yeah. So while there's a lot of things that need to be added, if they do keep working on this game, this was one of the coolest, most fun games that I played in a while for a horror theme type of thing. Yeah. Because we played, you know, Legacy of Fear recently. I like that a lot.
A lot of horror games are like long, drawn out.
This gets you right into
and
it.
this gets you right into it, which is what you want. With the horror genre, it's hard to just get into it unless you're playing Left 4 Dead or something like that.
Well, what you're talking about is more the games that have the jump scares, where you can't just like turn on the game and then all of a sudden, you know, because that's like you're not gonna get scared. You gotta wait like with Legacy of Fear. Honestly, that was a game like that. We had to wait like a good hour and 15 minutes before there was a real scare, and when it happened, it worked really well.
Right.
But sometimes you want a quick fix, and this game does that. Not that there's really jump scares, but it's just a horror game that's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'll tell you, when that killer walks by and like the heartbeat is pumping and stuff like that,
It's intense.
It's really intense, which is what you want.
Yeah.